have theater pages, we have media pages where we can put out information and narrative about either what we do or what our mission is or our values or just something that we think will be entertaining. And all of that serves the same end of lowering that barrier of skepticism.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Leads to Growth. I'm Chris McCoy, your host with the National Association of Sales Professionals. And today we've got a great guest, someone who's definitely a little bit off the beaten path of the people that we've spoken with. So really going to give you a great perspective to add a lot of value to your sales content, and just really understanding what you're doing. We got Zack Slingsby here. I love saying the name Slingsby. It's a lot more fun than McCoy. Anyways, Zack's a writer, short film creator, and founder of Human Factor Media, an award-winning branded storytelling company, and has worked with leading brands and publishers and created videos and won awards. And the list of awards when pops up on his website, it's like it's hard to even catch them all. But Zack, welcome to Leads to Growth, my friend.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. And thanks for that intro.
Absolutely, my friend. Appreciate you being here today. And so listen, y'all, we talk a lot about sales. We talk a lot about storytelling, right? And as a salesperson, we all know that our responsibility is directing focus, is creating stories to help sell our customers. And now more than ever, storytelling is important. It's important as a salesperson to be a person out there that's dependable, that's out there and available, right? Not just to be yelling at people, buy, right? This is how old marketing was done and old content's been done. Zack, tell us how you got into Human Factor Media and what inspired you to create and start this company.
Well, similar to that trend that you're kind of laying out, right? That transition from the old ways that we thought about brand and product and sales to the new way that these things are sort of being done. I started to notice that I was seeing videos and I was really surprised to find out that brands had put them out. I was coming across content online and it was stuff I would share with a friend and we would say, and this was now it's very obvious that this happens, but at the time it was less obvious, or at least to me, it was pretty extraordinary. And so I would share these videos and say, can you believe this came from,
XYZ
Subway or
brand,
MeUndies or Mountain Dew or something like that. And it was, I realized there was a market there for what I thought our strengths were. And so we started to make videos for brands that would have us. At the beginning, it was very few, and the videos were pretty poor, but we got better over time. And I think what you're saying is exactly what we've experienced. There's an old, it's funny, it's new, and at the same time, it's historical. There's an old definition of commerce, which is you want to lower uncertainty about one another so that we can exchange value. And you want to lower the barrier of saying, I don't know who this person is. I don't know anything about them. I don't know why they want to talk to me right now. What's the use of this conversation? And to kind of, in the past, we might've done that by, 5 or 7 cold calls. And finally on the 7th one, they're like, oh, it's just Jim again. Let's just talk to him. Let's give him a shot. Right. Now we all have, for lack of a better term, we have theater pages. We have media pages where we can put out information and narrative about either what we do or what our mission is or our values or just something that we think will be entertaining. And all of that serves the same end of lowering that barrier of skepticism.
Yeah, I love that. It's providing certainty almost, right? You say lower the barrier of skepticism. It's providing that certainty. I've also heard it spoken of as the line of authority. I think it was Seth Godin said it, but when it comes time to purchase something, if the brand is already up there above the line of authority, you then have to pull them below by observing things or experiences that then pull them below. But if you don't know much about them, you've got to prove them above. And that's cool. A much more difficult thing to do. So I love this. Now, you said you were early out there, right? You were forefront on this trend of.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on you very early. I think that, first, let me just caveat with we're a small team. We're a team in Nashville, a team in New York, and we produce nationally, but we're not a movie making Hollywood empire with studio lots and all that stuff, right? So we're a nimble production squad. But I think that we have, to me, 2017, 2018, when we started to really dive into this, there were a lot of brands that were out there making branded content, but the idea of branded narratives, branded entertainment was in a sense just kind of cresting. And in that way, yes. But in another way, you have the history of this, where soap operas were invented by soap companies to sell soap. Did you know that? So
No, I did not know
isn't that
that.
amazing? So it's like, it's in some ways that
Wow.
direct tie between brand and entertainment is incredibly old, and it's
Wow.
it's pattern repetition, and it's Colgate Comedy Hour, I think it was in the 50s. You know, you
No
had
kidding.
yeah. So it's very weird. You know, you brand that tie is historical as well.
Interesting. And yeah, I mean, we've seen product placement, right?
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
think those ideas, that concept is like, oh yeah, put the product within the capsule of a story or something that people are already watching or observing or buying into. Whereas I think we got to the other swing of that thing is, let's just shove our product out there and try to
Yeah.
put a nice story behind it. Even look at influencer marketing. A lot of brands and companies that were trying, or people who are trying to be influencers out there, were just being too blatant and pushing the brand out. People were like, you're trying to sell me now. And that feeling of being trying to sold is very apparent, and it happens in marketing very obviously as it does in sales.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the salespeople, then I have profound respect for salespeople, because it's not something that I just didn't understand sales as a concept before we started this business. And obviously, having done a lot of it for what we're doing, and and then there's a great passage in Peter Thiel's book Zero to One, where he talks about how sales is the backbone of so much of what goes on in America, and it's very rarely recognized. And for some reason, we don't want to directly address it, or even in major law firms, the prized rainmakers are the people who bring in business. And in academia, sales is the way that you further your career. And so in all these different facets of industry, we have sales is this the kind of secret that we don't really want to address. But I really, the salespeople that I know who are truly amazing at it, they're not even really doing sales. They've found something else to do that sort of simulates the effect of sales, but they're not saying, can I have 5 minutes of your time over and over again on the phone? They found a creative way to, like you said, kind of transmit that barrier.
It's so funny because the word sales is it's all in the context of the word sales, right? They're still selling. They're just not doing it where you feel like you're being sold. And I think that's the difference, is influence, right? Influence is I think Seth Godin said it as well. He said, influence is when you get somebody, he talked about selling small little fibs, right? And he said, and they're okay, these small little fibs, when you're influencing somebody do something for their own reasons. So they get over there and now they're grateful they did it because this is what they wanted to do, right? But when they get to the other side of that story or that purchase, and they realize, oh, this isn't really where I wanted to be, that's when they go back and they start second guessing and qualifying. So I think a lot of it is really when you're helping people get to the place that they're trying to go. And I think when you do that, a person doesn't feel like you sold them. They feel like you helped them. You guided them. And so the word doesn't have the same context anymore. And I think it's the same with marketing content. When you see a piece of content that you're like, generally hilarious. I've seen some guys do some fun videos where they do some TikToks or something like that, where they change the words. Or one dude did interviews where he was doing interviews where voiceover actors, it was like Pacino from Scent of a Woman. And so it was all the voiceover actors, and he was having a sales conversation with them. So the content was,
that's amazing.
It was brilliant. It was
amazing.
Intriguing. It was fun. And yet at the end, there was always a little tag of what he sold. So you didn't mind that little piece at the end, because the whole thing was built around the entertaining part.
Exactly. I couldn't even, no build on that. That's perfect. I completely agree. It's you don't mind that a brand is the purveyor of the experience, so long as the experience is about you and it's entertaining, and it's a valuable use of your time. It's not disrupting what you were otherwise on that channel for. And it's, you don't, it's funny because people will put the tag and people will not. Sometimes it's just a logo at the bottom of the screen.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes it's not, you don't have the offer at the end, and sometimes you do. And sometimes it's just simple as please subscribe so we can stay in touch. And then, right. And so there's all these degrees of where you want to set the dial of your, how much you want your presence to be known in the content. But it's so interesting the way people play with that. Like when you post on your personal social pages for your in your private life, you post a picture and you might not be in the picture, but people know that Chris posted it because your name is right above the picture. And so social media, brands on social media have that advantage that they didn't used to have on network television. Because on network, if you didn't say brought to you by Mitsubishi, brought to you by Duracell, brought to you by Colgate at the end, people would be like, where do I find this people that brought me in? But on social, if you're making a 5-part web series and it's on there, you can see who's responsible for this. And if you have a really smart data team or a marketing team behind it, it's all part of a funnel anyway. And you're being, everything that when you're watching it, you're expressing interest in the brand, and hopefully the content has some mirror to the values of the brand. Anyway, you know where I'm going with that, but yeah.
No, I absolutely love that. It's an element that you don't really think about, but it's huge. I mean, look at the Super Bowl QR code commercial, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Just a screen with a bouncing QR code on it. And it was brilliant and simple, but that opportunity, that QR code attaches it to the brand. So you didn't have to say anything about the brand because they have a link to find it. Technology has now bridged that gap.
Big time.
Whereas,
And where do you see it going? Like, do you picture us having, like, I don't even feel like in 10 years, this conversation is how do you figure ads are enter into the life of the American consumer in 10 years? It's going to be so hard.
It really is. I had a great conversation with John Andrews, who is working with a company called Smart Commerce. And Smart Commerce is very interesting. As you go on social media and you're on Instagram or something like that, and you see some shoes, some Nikes or whatever, and you're like, yeah, well, I like those. I want to buy them. I want to check those out. But you've now got to click the button. It then takes you to another page. Yeah, sure, you're within the framework. And then you got to go in there and you got to find the shoes again. You got to add them to your cart. And it's a whole separate experience. And so it takes you away from the thing that you were doing. And so what they're doing now is giving you a one-stop pop where you can now just add it to your Instagram or whatever shopping cart. Shop now. Exactly. And so the idea of look at, you see some of these QR codes or little things popping up on some Netflix shows, like Choose Your Own Adventure Netflix shows. Yes. I think these engaging programming things are really going to take things to the next level. You're right. And I think it's going to be about what people want to engage in.
So how does that play out? Like if I'm, I don't know, in some VR experience, I'm just planning into the future. Let's say I'm doing something that is, I'm driving around in a smart car and I've got the earpiece and the watch and all this stuff. And I had a conversation a couple of days ago with someone where I mentioned Nike shoes, and one of the 3 billion sensors understands that might be something I'm interested in. How does that then get served to me as the consumer in that context?
Well, that's great. That user interface, I think, is the most important, and how it's presented. Even looking at sales and marketing, it's look at marketing, traditional marketing right now. You've got to ask for engagement. You've got to ask for a reply. You got to ask for all these things before you get to a call to action. It's the same thing in sales. I've got to ask you the proper questions to make sure that you're interested. Let's agree that these are your goals and outcomes before I actually get you there. So I think even this experience of where I want it, there's going to have to be some agreement or area where we go to, hey, look, this is where I go to buy, or some area where we say, I sign and I approve all these things that I've then pre-approved in the past or something like that. There's going to have to still be some authority given by us so that we can be, we made the decision.
Yeah, exactly.
We made the decision.
We made the choice. Yeah. You have to opt in. Yeah.
And tell me about storytelling. So, with brands, I believe so much about sales is about triggering imaginations, directing focus for people. How does that relate over into the storytelling and what you all do at Human Factor?
Yeah, triggering imagination is a great term. I feel that we'll get introduced to a brand and we'll come in and we'll have a deck of ideas, 2 or 3 or 4 ideas that we think would be really good match for what they're trying to do and the people they're trying to reach. So it's not necessarily blind. Every laugh is valuable. You want to have some target in mind of who you want to notice that you're out there. And then from there, we try to ask questions like, well, what is on the cultural mindset right now? What are some things that may be interesting to the people that they are targeting? But then after that, the things that make a story great are timeless. And so you want to go back to the things that were the roots of most of our careers. We're all usually creative backgrounds on the team. Most of us do not have a marketing background. We come from either writing or production or storytelling, film, television, things like that. So we kind of think of it instinctually as ROI is something that we know has to be represented in our decks. But the number one thing we're thinking about is how do we, like you said, trigger the imagination? How do we show people a new kind of frontier of what might be possible online?
That's beautiful. Yeah, and I love that process. You're almost reverse engineering as creatives. Like nobody wants to talk about ROI. I want to create, right? But you're like, yeah, no, we know we got to put that on there, but we use all the other stuff that makes us light up into showing how that ROI turns out.
Exactly right.
Very cool, man. Very cool. So you also mentioned, working with brands. I read recently, I had a great interview we just published today with Shelly Phillips, and she talked about personal branding, and how important personal branding is not only for an individual as they go through their career, doing their things, building their own personal asset, but for a company to empower their employees to share their personal brand through social media. Do you ever involve the employees of a brand in your film, in your film creation for that brand?
Yeah, well, we do create many different types of content. I would say maybe a third of what we're doing is more, I would say, experimental, in that
Okay.
we're pushing brands to go and do maybe something scripted, or something that's a little more that you would find on a streaming platform, that maybe a docu-series or something that's
Okay.
strictly about the subject. And that kind of thing is obviously what we would be doing no matter what. That's what we love to do. Besides that, we have more stuff that's geared toward unpacking a brand story. So it'll be about either the founding team or the profile pieces of the sort of the members who the players who are involved, or the mission. And the mission is often incredibly inspiring and interesting, and so that can be made into a great cinematic journey as well. And so we're probably moving more towards the former, but I think that the team members that are involved in any project have a big part to play, obviously in the creation, and they know their brand at the end of the day better than anyone, and also in the distribution and promotion as well.
Yeah, that being a part of something, being proud of the company you work for and the brand that you represent, is a big piece of culture that is a part of the empowering those employees to share. And so I could see the same thing with them being involved in the process of creation.
Absolutely.
It improves their appreciation of the product,
Right.
and having some ownership and stake in it. So that's yeah, that makes a lot
Definitely
of
true.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they really enjoy it. I mean, some of the people we work with, this on the CMO level or in the C-suite, they really everyone is a fan of creativity in some way. They have a favorite
Sure.
show or something. Maybe some of them wanted to maybe pursue something like this in their child, earlier, and thought about. They have creative instincts, and they get to bring those up, and we collaborate, and they come to the set. It's a lot of fun, so it's very much a collaborative effort on our part. And sometimes they have ideas. Sometimes they're like, look, we know exactly what we want to make. We need you guys to show us the best way to do it. And sometimes the most economical way to do it. And then we work together, to figure it out. So yeah, it works. It cuts both ways.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what are some pivot points, or some times that you interact with brands that are like, hey, we need to now do this, or we need to, you mentioned telling the brand story, talking to the founders group. Is this something that people prepare when they're raising funds? Is this something they prepare when they're going to market? I mean, when is a time when a company's like, hey, we've been doing some good content, but maybe we need a staple piece that really tells our story now?
Yeah. It's a great question. It happens, I think, at all different phases. So we're working with one company right now. This is actually a great extreme example. So on one hand, we have a company that's been around about a year and a half, incredibly interesting in the nutritional space. And they want to tell why their why. I mean, they want to come up and explain exactly why they exist and what the individual personal stories were of the people that came together to make this.
I like it.
And that is, it's profound, because it's a rare situation where the really gripping story overlaps with an interesting, unique product. But most of the time, if you're talking about a new pair of shoes, we know what shoes are. Know what shoes are. You have a lot of options. We don't need to talk about how we were inspired to that design to make that exact.
There's only so many Tom's stories,
sure,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so then on the other hand, we're working with a company that's been around for about 25 years. that has made some videos, but they've done business the way that they knew how to do business, and they're in the green sustainability space, and they make I don't see any reason why I can't say Emerald Brands based in New York, and they're tremendous people to work with, and they understand. They've always kind of had in the back of their head that we need to make a lot of videos and tell our story and the mission we want to kind of help bring about through our company. And they kind of, the stars seem to align with them that this was the time to do it. So there's no, you're not too late or too early. It's just, I think it depends if they have the confidence that branded storytelling is a way to scale what you're doing. And truth be told, and you know this, it's not always, right? It's not. If you're a startup and you're on a burn rate and you know where the low hanging fruit are of your customers, you might not want to invest in branded storytelling. And so there's totally room for that as well.
Absolutely. And we just had a great conversation the other day. I mean, if you're a startup, you might not be the same company that you are today, tomorrow. So being flexible and not creating giant asset pieces like that makes sense. Yeah. I think where it really hits me is those who have a very valuable, unique selling proposition to their audience, and how they can relay that to their audience, like a purposeful why. Right, like those types of things, like those come through in stories very well, and really attach to the audience and trigger that emotion, right? Yes. And when a brand can trigger emotion, you go back to that.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
That's true. That's just a fact. I mean, that's just true. And it's something that people will say, oh, well, how do you prove that? And, is it worth this investment for a relationship that goes on down the road? And people will come back. And what is the alternative if it's not a relationship that lasts for down the road? If it's not a relationship that's going to continue to serve both parties? A one-time shot, you're in their newsfeed for 2 seconds, you give them a discount code. Maybe they buy it. Probably they don't. 0.05% will click through and buy it. And maybe you made an ROI, maybe not. That's the alternative. I mean, so the idea that you wouldn't play for a long relationship is something that confounds me. And that we do know that a third of folks who follow a brand ends up making a purchasing decision from them. And so you have statistics like that are everywhere that do prove the value of trying to appeal to people as human beings.
And that is the shift of sales and marketing right now to in the most simplest form. Coming back to being human beings, right? Automation got exciting and got heavy. We got excited because everybody loves video. So everybody just shoved video down your throat everywhere. Yeah. And we forgot that, there's humans on the other end of the line, right? We had a great conversation the other day, and somebody was telling a story that they were talking to their buddy who owns a brand, and this guy was complaining. He's like, you keep getting these emails, always asking me to buy, just shoving stuff down my throat. Like, have you looked at your email promotion? This is exactly what you do to your customers, and it's take the time. It doesn't matter what seat you are. If you're in the marketing seat, the chief level seat, or if you're down, in the SDR seat, take the time to look at the experience that the person that you're soliciting is getting. Be aware of that.
Totally. And what do you think? Yeah. We say is what do you delete and what do you read? When you're looking at your emails, what do you add? What's the first thing and as a consumer, because we're never smarter than we're as consumers. We see things clearly. For some reason, we lose clarity when we're on the business side. But when we think about it as consumers, we're like, well, I would never spend time watching that video in a million years. Why would we make this? But
you just said it to 5,000 people last week.
Right. Exactly. What do you think? You said the automation part was really interesting, and we've been getting asked about I find that we're getting pitched a lot of non-automated solutions lately, and a lot of I've heard from a lot of other people they are too. You think that's the way it's going?
It's yes, and I don't know if it's the way that it's going. It's the way that it is right now, because the loudest voice is always the one that's heard, and in a sea of people mumbling automation, someone who speaks, human language and actually is communicating to you from the heart with intent is heard. Yeah. And because there's not a lot of people doing it.
Yeah.
They stand out.
What do you think about LinkedIn in general? Like what's going on with LinkedIn right now?
I love LinkedIn, and LinkedIn's finding their way to allowing people to leverage the asset that they've built within it and without controlling everything. And they're finding ways to do that. And what's happening right now is there's just a lot of plug-in tools that provide automated LinkedIn reach outs.
So
And
what's your opinion of that?
when done properly, I think it's amazing. When
Yeah.
done with value add,
Yeah.
I often use automation, but it's not for asks. It's for engagements or ad. Hey, did you see? Hey, you're a new member in our community. Did you know we have a podcast too? Check out this interview from our CEO. Hey, if I'm a new member of a community and I would love to know what other resources there are available. I'm not asking you to set up a meeting. I'm not throwing meeting link. It's not 4 paragraphs of content that you've not even solicited. I know you're interested in us because you just followed us. So I'm going to add some more value to that follow. I'm not going to ask you for anything.
I see. So,
And so
so the
I
same
use,
principle apply. Yeah.
yeah, it's the same. And I talk to people all the time. It's like that. You're on your first date, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to hold the hand before you go for the kiss, and you got to get permission, y'all. I mean, I don't know what y'all have been doing out there, but you got to get permission. I mean, this is a bunch of sexual predator marketers out there.
I hope you call this episode "Sexual Predator Marketplace."
Just getting in my inbox without asking permission.
It's
absurd.
People don't even read it. It's the Wild West out there. I'm sure you get blown up. I get this all the time, and it's very weird how formulaic they are.
It really is.
But so you think automation is good as long as you're using it to disseminate information that people might care to engage with, not anything that's self-interested.
100%. It's about providing value. We always have an ism, a set of values that we work by here at NASP, and one of our values is deliver value, and it's always value leads, money follows. Right? Value leads, money follows. You ever want to ask for money from somebody, deliver that amount of value first. Rod Harrison, our CEO, used to sell for Tony Robbins, and he used to go out and do door to door with businesses and say, hey, let me speak to your group. And they'd say, sure, you can speak to our group for an hour, but you can't sell them anything. But his whole goal to speak to them was to get them to buy the Tony Robbins tickets that were coming to town, because that was how he made his money. And so what he said is, I would go in there and I would deliver twice the value that they were, that I was going to ask them for the ticket. So when they got out of there, wow, I got $1,000 worth of value, and now dude's offering me to buy a $500 ticket. No parade, done and done. Wow. And so we always want to be on the side of value. Like most of our content is free. Yeah. We put out these interviews for free. We put out, blogs regularly for free. We have coaching calls for free. We do so much value add, and in return, then, oh, great. Yeah, we've got an offer for you too. Well, which obviously must be good. You've given me this much value already. Right. It's worth it. And I think that's exactly why I was interested in talking with you, because the idea of brands putting out content that's valuable. I don't care if it's just entertaining, valuable.
Did you ever read Made in America by Sam Walton?
I have not.
It's his memoir. He wrote it, I believe he wrote it on his deathbed. And it's all about how he started Walmart. And it's a fascinating book. I mean, there's so many pearls in there. But one of the things that he talks about is when he had his first convenience store in Arkansas. Can't remember the name of the town in Arkansas that he started Walmart in, but there was this massive 5 and dime store across the street that everyone in the small town went to, and they could not, even though their prices were better inside, they couldn't compete because everyone we go to the store. That's where we go. It's right across the street. It was huge. And so Walton couldn't get anybody to come into his store. And he was convinced that if they came in, the discount pricing would take hold, become part of their weekly shopping habits. Mm-hmm. So he tried everything, signs in the window, promises, all this stuff, wasn't getting anywhere. Eventually, he goes down and rents an ice cream machine. So I guess this is the 70s, 60s. I don't know when this would have been, 60s maybe. And so he rents an ice cream machine. He puts it right out in front of the store. And the kids, when the parents are taking them into the other store, they point over across the street and we want to go have ice cream over there. So they would slowly take the kids over to have ice cream. And after the first few tries, they would start looking at the store and asking questions. And eventually they would go in. And then that was the beginning of the saga. An ice cream machine out inside of the store, out front of the store. And to this day, well, I don't know to this day, but certainly before he died, they were having they would have concerts in Walmart parking lots. They would put on a show because they knew that was going to be the greatest motivator of attention, was, entertainment value, to your point, instead of just constantly bombarding people with the same message. Buy.
I absolutely love that. And if you look at what Walmart's doing they're really John Andrews, I referenced him a couple of times already, wrote the book, him and Ted. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Retail Relevancy. Really, really great book. About brand, retail brands and their
Is that an
shift.
abandoned parking lot on the cover?
Yeah, that's exactly
Okay.
what it is. Yeah,
Okay.
It's an abandoned parking lot with a little shopping cart. And
Fair
so
enough.
the idea is, and John actually sold his first company to Walmart. And the shopping experience at Walmart is, say what you say about the people, the locations, sometimes, yeah, those are questionable. But I went into a Walmart. I didn't talk to anybody, didn't touch anything, went right through. I had a full cart of groceries and got to go right through and check them all out myself. Didn't have to worry about too many products. I went back and grabbed something else that I forgot, went right back out. Flawless, easy experience. And John really started with them with the content marketing, and it was about telling stories. So putting stories out there that people then identified with the brand, and then the stories are what sold. I think that is definitely the way with like, as you led this conversation off, our social medias have become media platforms, right? And everybody has their own media platform. The way our viewing is shifting on social media, the content's going to have to shift. You're no longer just going to be able to get it with like, as you mentioned, coupons and ads all the time.
I totally agree. Something very powerful happens when you talk to someone in that language, and you kind of penetrate their defenses just by showing them something that they recognize as part of their own life. There's a moment of resonance. It's the same spark that happens when you read a novel and you find some line that's like, how could they know that about me? It's a striking moment, and I do think that there's that power. But it's a different medium. And so it's going to manifest differently, but it's such a superpower, and the field is wide open to take advantage of it. And yeah, to your point, we used to call them social networks.
Yeah.
I don't say that anymore.
Exactly.
Social media.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Wow. I never even thought about that pivot. Zach, this has been a great interview. And I feel like you interviewed me half the time, which is a nice pivot.
I want to dive in there. I know there's a crypt of information in there. I'm trying to get
my man. So I got a couple questions for you, because I want to leave some good value for our audience out there. On top of this, I always like to leave some actionable pieces. So
yeah,
all right, I'm a marketer, or I'm a sales rep, and I'm out there. I'm leveraging my marketing content that they're putting out, or I'm in the know of what my content is. How do I know why my videos are failing? My branded videos are failing.
Yeah, great question. So one is, I think, the way that the YouTube so we work with a couple of different YouTube specialists to distribute our own content as well as client content. And one of the main metrics that YouTube uses, I can tell you, is the watch rate, the actual rate of completion in proportion to how long the content is. So the views can be a vanity metric if everybody's clicking out after the first 10% of the video. And a different note, Red Bull fame has Red Bull's Kingpin at Red branded. Yeah. I mean, they're incredible.
Yeah.
So, and there was an interview with some filmmakers that had done some great work for them. And they revealed that the number one metric that Red Bull uses to assess the quality of their content is not views. It's not watch rate. It's not shares. It's the comment section. They want to see how much people found the content to be so riveting that they had to write a paragraph about it. So wow. when they tallied up how many people felt a personal engagement with the comments, they thought of the campaign as a success, and most of their campaigns definitely were. So I would say, dive in and look at it's easy to look at a top line metric sheet for video performance and see good news and just tell yourselves, well, we had this click-through rate, we had this, this number of top line views, this number of people shared it. It's very easy there's always something in there. And I think the platforms design the information this way to give you some good news in some way. Like, well, yeah, but look what our cost per click was, something to be excited about for everyone. Yeah. But I would just say, has anyone emailed you and said, wow, that was great, and that really changed my day? I mean, I would look at the human indicators around the content.
Love that. How many people fail just to call the people to say no to them and ask them why, or ask them what they could do better, or how they could improve? Look at the market you're setting out to, ask them why they didn't watch the video. Find out who bounces and ask them why they bounce. Right. I mean, there's
perfect analogy. Yeah.
They're really
get
great
the information.
Get the information. Absolutely. So I love that. So be careful looking, getting pacified by some nice KPIs, right? And look for the human engagement. I really like that. Yeah. One other piece, and you mentioned it earlier, so I wanted to give it a little breathing room here. everybody's going to ask the same thing, right? We got to pitch this. We got to present this. I got to put a business case together. How do I measure my ROI?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, if you're doing one video in a year and you're putting a ton of promotion behind it and you're going to cross your fingers and hope it changes your business, that's probably not going to happen. It's just probably not. I would love to say that it will. I can think of a couple of examples where one video that we made had a tremendous impact in different ways, definitely in sales, but also, we've done some for a nonprofit that had just totally changed the course they were on. So, I mean, there are things rare moments can happen. Everyone knows Dollar Shave Club's a famous example. This guy walks around. He's had background in improv comedy. He's taken a machete to a bunch of stuff. And then all of a sudden the company's worth $1 billion. Okay. That can happen, but most of the time it won't. I would advise, if you're serious about video, looking at what a year-long strategy or a 6-month long strategy would do for you. And if you're working with a production company that's worth their salt, what they're going to do is get a lot of content out of a little bit of production. And so they're going to create a long runway for you. How do you gauge the efficacy of that? Come up with what a success looks like to you at the beginning. Maybe it's 2,000 subscribers additionally, maybe it's X% increase in sales. Or maybe it's that, a smaller group of people becomes 100% devoted to what you're going to do next. And so I would define the win for yourselves. And, I think that we have case studies that show all the metrics that we've talked about, but the problem is that they were true for them. And you're going to make a whole different video, and it's going to go, it's going to be a whole different story, and it's going to be a whole different journey. And so it's hard to say how much you can replicate that. I think that if you're watching a video that moves you, that makes you feel something, and it's coming from your brand, there's a good chance it's going to connect with other people too. We have way more in common than we think.
Absolutely, brother. And I love that what you said. You said you said a lot there. But with this slipped my mind, man. Just caught me. No, it was
the measuring a win and
yes. Sorry, I get distracted because I'm like, oh, I gotta say something. Like, no, be present, listen what you're.
I get it, man.
I don't like to think what I'm going to say before you speak. So I like to kind of shut my brain up, and then every now and again that thing will lose me. I'm like, oh, was it important?
Host?
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that this is sales. This is sales 101, y'all, especially with softwares for sales like we're using nowadays, right? What does a win look like for you? If you don't have those expectations up front, don't sell a product to somebody. In B2B sales nowadays, you need them to know what a win looks like for them before they buy. And when you're working with somebody, when you have an engagement, don't ask what the ROI is. Ask you're just fishing out there. You're hoping for something right now. That's basically like, hey, look, y'all, I need a win. Can somebody give me a 25% by the end of the quarter somewhere? That's ridiculous. If you say, hey, look, here's what I need. I need more engagement from my audience. I need more. I need people to stick around longer. I need more retention with my audience. How do I do that? How do I accomplish that? Maybe I should use video. Okay, well, hey, here's what I want to accomplish with my video. Can we accomplish that? That's a way to approach this conversation. Would you say, Zach?
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And then you turn, that's a great business goal. And then you pair that with, well, what do I want out of this as a human being? And what would someone else want as a human being? The worst video on Funny or Die is generally going to beat the hell out of the best sales video. I mean, it's like, you're just playing in a different domain once you enter into the realm of what people do and think about in their leisurely lives, All
right. I got one more question for you too. Yep. How often do you have to stay? Do you have to, how often do you see brands fall on the other side of the line where their content maybe is entertaining and fun, but this doesn't align with the brand at all? There's no congruency there. And that can be a mistake of somebody as well, right?
Yeah, but it's tough. I don't know. It's a good question. I really don't have a good answer for that. I think that there are examples of that for sure, where it's just there's a t-shirt brand that I can't remember the name of it that's just crushing it on TikTok right now. And they're just doing all these bizarre, crazy comedy bits. And I'm sure that they're selling a lot of shirts. I don't know what the hell that has to do with anything they're doing, but what is Lexus has a theater page where they're getting like Colin Quinn to do shows, and they're not doing cramming product placement into all the episodes. So, I mean, it's tough to botch widespread attention. Once you have widespread attention, once you have widespread attention, you can usually point it towards some other purpose. So you're right that congruency is certainly something you think you need to bake in at the beginning of any campaign, especially if it's more experimental and you're going to do, 1 or 2 or 3 of these and kind of see how it goes. You really want to get that right. But erring on the side of entertainment, I think is always a good idea.
You're right. And as long as I'm attracting the same audience, you said, I can shift my focus and where I'm directing them. I like that. So, I mean, now that's happening, and you just mentioned musicians and stuff. So how you see it with Nike all the time, and I'll be surfing social media and I'll see a pair of Nikes that I've never seen those before. They got things all on them. Like, oh, it's designed by so-and-so, some new artist, or you got the off-whites, how often are brands now working with artists to, to build content?
It's amazing. It's all the time. It's a artist. So in the sense of that, they are one of the, well, it's a good thing that it's common, but it's one of the ways that I think you mentioned that they work with them that might not be as strategically, thought out, is that they're just asking them to sell it, right? They're working the artist, say, look, try to find a way to just mention the shoe, as opposed to contracting the artist to do something that is actually inherently artistic, which would probably be a better bet for them in the long run. But this whole idea of the market between creatives and commerce is unbelievable. I don't think anyone saw it coming the way it's
musicians and alcohol brands is unreal. I mean, we just hosted Jack Daniel's event at Music Hill Ranch here, and it was 5 or 6 new artists, musicians, and it's just the musicians and brands are really, really big right now.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, we've got a few of those in the hopper now, and I live in Nashville. The company's, like I said, between Nashville and New York, and so it's a whole other economy for up and coming musicians. Is this branded content space? It's incredible. There are these groups of people out there whose job it is to make really moving content, and then there are brands on the other side that recognize that this content is the best strategy for growth, and so it adds up to this new two-sided marketplace that puts brands in the driver's seat of consumers' attention, but gives creative people who in some other decade might be, begging some gatekeepers for a chance, gives them a new opportunity to be valuable to the market.
I love that, man. I love that. Listen, every salesperson is out there building their own personal brands. We talked about in our podcast today, and part of you building your personal brand is sharing your own content. When you're sharing your own content, you're creating your own content, learn from others, learn from the experts. And that's why I had Zack on today is, we're creating a ton of content here at NASP, and to be able to have conversations with those who are creative. Yeah, maybe we're not doing our own short film, segmented pieces, but we will soon, right? And maybe I'll do a couple of my own, learn some stuff about it, and then we'll start to, bridge out there and bring in someone like Zack here and the crew to do some work with us. But the idea is everybody's building their own brand, and your brand is built by the content on your social media. If you're not doing it purposefully and proactively, it's still happening. Right? When someone's to interview you, someone's going to hire you, someone wants to buy from you, work with you, whatever, they're pulling you up on LinkedIn or social media. And what does that brand and what does that story tell? And so, all right, one more thing, Zack. Tell us, last question before we roll this out. How have you used sales and influence in building this career and doing and getting to where you are today?
How have I used sales to build this?
Yes, sales.
Well, it's the only way. It's the only way to use any. It's the only way to build anything, man. I had no understanding of the depth and intensity and importance of sales. And to your point, to make it something that is not sales. And it's been, we're coming towards the end of I think we're in our 5th year now. It's tough to know exactly when the start date was, but I think that, you take tremendous responsibility on when you tell somebody that you can help them and that they should apportion some part of their budget to what you think is a good idea. I mean, it comes with a big burden of responsibility, and that reputation is the most important thing. We take it very seriously. And I think that, if sales is done well, it's just trying to be as honest as possible and trying to work really hard after you've gained someone's trust to show them that they were not in fact deceived, that you actually are going to help them, and that they should tell the next person that that's how it went.
That's very human of you, Zack. I like it. Very beautifully said, and exactly right, y'all. Everybody uses sales and influence, and those who are successful and last in this industry or whatever industry they choose are those who choose to invest in their relationships and value their reputation. Those two are essential in building a business. This has been a really fun conversation, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, man. I enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So where can people find you? You all want to put some
Yeah.
content out there. Where can we find Zachary here?
Yeah, you can check out our site. It's Human Factor Media, humanfactormedia.co. Or you can email me directly, zack@humanfactormedia.co.
Awesome. And we'll have your LinkedIn here in the comments. Thank y'all for joining us today. Have an amazing day. Go for a walk. Give yourself some love today. Celebrate life today. It's a beautiful thing that we're all alive. Thank you for joining us. And also don't forget to leave us a review down there. We like those stars a lot. So thank you for joining us. That Leads to Growth. We're the National Association of Sales Professionals. Join for free, NASP.com. And we'll see y'all next week. Cheers. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, man.